Today, we'll be finishing our dungeon kitchen. How are you today? Art Jeremiah here, and I'm back with another Building a Dungeon episode. If you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to this channel for weekly inspiration. And now, let's get into that video. This is one of the rooms that we made a few weeks back. If you want to see how I made it, then you can follow the link on the screen, watch that video, then come back here to see it finished. This room is going to be the kitchen's temple. So today we're going to fill it out with stuff to make it look like an old kitchen. I have a variety of crates and barrels that I think will look good in the room. Some of these are purchased off of Amazon, and some are from the Terrain Crate Dungeon Debris set that I reviewed over a year ago. And I really wanted to add a little skull somewhere in this build, so this little skull. Then we're going to craft some stuff from this piece of foam. I first cut my piece of foam down to size. I just use a metal ruler and my knife to get a straight enough cut. I keep a miniature handy for comparison. I knew I wanted to make a stovetop, so I don't want the people that are cooking to have to reach too high or bend too low. I eventually decided these three pieces would be perfect for what I wanted. Next, I took out a piece of 400 grit sandpaper and smoothed out all the surfaces and rounded the corners slightly. I wanted these to be stoves and ovens made of smooth stone and metal, so I figured having a smooth surface would be helpful. Then, using my Tombow brush pen, I sort of start sketching the details that I want. I figured some burners would help give the room kitchen vibes. And then, because we're making a sort of medieval fantasy stove, I wanted to have a drawer underneath the burners for hot coals. Then, the oven will just be a door with a drawer underneath. And we will have one fireplace thing for burning wood. I traced the door and drawers on the oven and stove with my hobby knife. Then chunked out what will be the opening of the fireplace. And to get a good groove where I traced with my hobby knife, I'm going to use this little instrument. This is an old pen that I've replaced the insides with a knitting needle. I did this because I like the knitting needle tip, but I also like the bevel I get from the pen. I can explain this more in a later video if you want. I used a Sharpie to add some rivets and draw around the outside of the burners. I then went through some of my bits and found some plastic parts that would work well for things like chimneys and other accessories. Pieces of old pens seemed to be perfect for the chimneys. I just scored these with a knife, then used my clippers to cut them down to size. So I didn't have a bunch of rigid edges. I used a kitchen torch just to melt them a little bit. Don't forget to check out the secret Amazon link in the description. It's an awesome way to help support the channel at no extra cost to you. I used pieces of bent paperclip for handles. And then, after hot gluing the chimney in place, we have something that is resembling an old-fashioned oven. I also added granny grating to the fireplace door. And now, we're starting to look like we have a kitchen. Here's the oven, the fireplace, and the stovetop. At this point, only the chimneys were glued in place, so I just used PVA glue to bond the grating and the handles. No kitchen would be complete without some big knives, so I'm using this sour cream container lid to make that happen. We just need the top flat part, so I first cut that out. Then, with my ultrafine point Sharpie, I draw some utensil shapes. We don't need anything complicated, just having the shapes will give us the detail we're looking for. Then I use my hobby knife to cut out these shapes. This plastic is soft and easy to work with. No need for multiple swipes of a blade or using a heavy-handed cut. And after gluing one of the knives to the stove top, I realized I needed something else in this room, like a table for preparing food or something like that. If you're enjoying this channel, consider joining us over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and you will gain access to patron-only content such as sneak peeks of what I'm working on and extra footage of builds like this. Anyway, so I'm going to make a stone slab table similar to the altars in the trophy room. I won't go into detail about how I made this table. Hit up that trophy room video if you want to see that. Doing this table did spur me on to add some fine cracks to all the stone parts of the kitchen. After I glued all the knives and spoons to the table, I still felt like something was missing, so I cut out and shaped a plate with my kitchen torch, then added it to the table. I base coated all my crates and kitchen parts in spray paint that doesn't melt styrofoam. More on that subject in a video coming really soon, so if you want to know 3 or more spray paints that absolutely won't melt styrofoam, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out. I started the paint job off just by painting all the stone with a medium gray. This time I'm using Apple Barrel's Pewter Gray. I base coat all the barrels and the crates with Anita's Brown. I wanted to vary the color of the woods a little, so I painted about half the crates with Territorial Beige, and I'm just doing a quick and somewhat sloppy approach. Then, using some green paint, I wipe a little off and dab and scrub it randomly on most of the wood pieces and the stone. I then sparingly do the same thing to a few of the barrels and crates, but with some gray paint. Now, these are looking like they belong in a dank dungeon. I decided that I wanted like an old blackened brass look to all the metal. So, first, I painted everything with Vallejo brass, and I'm just going to keep it simple and paint all the metal this color. Oh wait, not yet. First I'm going to do a highlight, with a light dry brush of cream over everything. I did a little extra dry brushing to the skull. Again, not worrying about staying in the lines. I just used a big brush and let the sculpts do the talking. And now we can get back to the metal. Like I said, I keep it simple and paint all the metal the same color. This includes the utensils, as well as the bands on the barrels. Some of the crates even had metal bands that I painted brass. Painting all these bands of metal, I think, was the longest step of the whole build. And I did worry about staying in the lines and getting a nice neat look, but not too much. If I accidentally dabbed a little paint off a band of metal occasionally, I just ignored that and kept painting, not getting too bogged down by perfection. Last week's highlighted comment is by Hacksaw's Hobby Bunker, who said, Very cool build. Sometimes a bit off topic can be good. Came out great. Cheers. Thanks, Hacksaw. I was a bit worried about sounding preachy or something, but I felt good about the video in the end. I was especially proud of how the diorama turned out. And now for blackening the metal. For this, I will be mixing glazing medium, a few drops of black ink, and a tiny bit of water. This is going to be slightly thicker than a wash, but still thinner than paint. And we're just going to paint a thick coat over all the metal. If at any time I could see my brush strokes too much, I just dabbed my brush in those spots to hide it a little. Regardless, that isn't too important because the glazing medium will help hide the brush strokes as well. As you can see on the fireplace, when it dries, it has a nice dark metal look to it. I've applied this to all the metal, including the barrels and the crates, as you can see in the back there. And the room wouldn't be complete without adding some of our black and yellow dank effects from previous videos. Just a reminder, this is a wash that is a mix of black and yellow paint, giving us a nice rich olive green. I apply it randomly on all the pieces. It also had this effect of cleaning up and toning down the skull a little bit. As shown here on the table, I am heavy-handed in some spots and light-handed in others. This just helps give it a little variation. This little cluster of barrels looked great as is, but I've had a plan to fill this pot with some sludge of sorts. So, to achieve that, I just fill it with hot glue. I add a drop of our dank effect to the barrel when the hot glue is still pliable. Then I just mix the top a little with a toothpick. I was a bit slow finding a toothpick, so the glue had dried a little bit more than I had wanted it to. I then add a drop of gloss varnish to the top of the barrel. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this was after I spray varnished everything with my airbrush. I didn't get that part on camera because my battery had died. And when I'm happy with the arrangement, I use PVA glue to secure everything in place. Now enjoy these glamour shots and stay tuned to see the dungeon so far. And now, the dungeon so far. Continue the journey by clicking on one of the two links on the screen right now.